Oh, hi there. Ollie Anderson here. You're listening to Creative Status. This is a podcast about using your creativity to improve your life, mainly in the areas of health, wealth, and relationships. But also, if you want to take it a little bit deeper, it's about looking at your relationship with yourself, figuring out the fragments that are holding you back and causing you to hesitate and stopping you from growing and flowing and moving with life, and taking all of those inspired actions that you want to take when you're able to tune into yourself and listen to your own intuition. And ultimately, it's about exploring how the creative process is the process of doing that, tuning more deeply into a sense of wholeness. That's the little rant. If you don't know, my name is Ollie Anderson. I'm a creative performance coach. I help people with their lives and businesses, but mainly it's about helping them to distinguish the real from the unreal so that they can do all the things I just said, get out of their own way, and start flowing with inspired action. Today's episode of Creative Status is an interview with Avilasha Sarmah, also known as Storyteller Earthling. I have been following her for a while on Instagram, and we've had a few chats. She seemed like someone who totally understands all this stuff, and I just really wanted to talk to her more deeply about it, and it was a good thing to do that because I got a lot of insight from this conversation. We covered all kinds of stuff: the law of attraction, how to live without resistance, how to keep flowing, what the artistic process is, how we can find inspiration, how no matter who we are and no matter what we've been through, our interpretations of reality are all going to be slightly different, even if that reality is the same for all of us when it's bubbling beneath the surface of life itself. There's loads of cool stuff in here. So, Avilasha, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on here and letting me ask you a billion different questions and throwing curveballs at you. And everybody else, I hope you really enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. And I'll see you next Monday for another one of these when we have another episode of Creative Status. Here we go. Oh, hi there, Avilasha. Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Creative Status. We've been following each other basically on Instagram for quite a long time, and you seem like somebody who gets it. So I wanted to talk to you, and now here we are having this conversation. Before we get into it, do you feel like introducing yourself and telling people who you are, what you're interested in, and why you wanted to have this conversation?
Sure. First of all, thank you for, choosing me, like asking me to be a part of your podcast, because I have come across, like I follow your podcast on Amazon, and I love the content that you create, the topics that you talk about, because it really inspires me to think. And it's my honor to be a part of it today. And hi, for people listening, I'm Avilasha. I'm from India, and you can find, like, I use the alter ego Storyteller Earthling to create content, and that's how I would identify myself as Storyteller Earthling. And basically, I'm a writer and a poet and a person, and I publish 2 novels, and I love writing. So yeah, I'm a writer who loves to travel. So yeah, that's what I write about: travel and nature, and whatever inspires me to create.
Wow. So actually, you're a very prolific, creative person. So you've written a load of books, you're doing all this poetry and everything. Let's dive right into this thing that you just shared, though, about being a storytelling earthling. So there's, the really interesting concept there is this idea of being an earthling. So obviously, we're all technically earthlings as far as we know. But what does that mean to you? Like, why did you decide to go with that little name?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for asking this question. Because, like, I didn't realize the fact that I live like an earthling, but I did not use the word for a long time. Yeah, but like, for me, earthling is something, like, I feel, this is my belief, that we are here on this planet briefly, and
Mm,
if I look at it from a travel point of view, like, I'm traveling. This journey is my journey, right?
mm,
So when I'm
mm,
traveling, I'm here briefly. So this inspires me to create. Like, for example, in a basic trip, when you're traveling, we are organically inspired by the trip, by the journey, and we are creating.
mm,
We are not, succumbing to the everyday problems or the negative thinking that we're under. But when we're traveling, we forget that, and we tend to focus on the new stuff. We allow life to inspire us, we allow the journey to, take us where we want to go. We don't fight it with resistance. So this is why I use the word earthling, and this came to me like, I growing up, I think everybody faces that. We are told this is how life should be. Like we're given a set structure. This is what we should do, and this is the what success should be. What I did everything. I chose a career where I thought that I was successful because I was following all the rules, but I was very unhappy. And so during the pandemic, I just realized that I felt like there's this thing like, what if the world ends tomorrow, and I've not even started living, So time when I sat down and wrote my second book. It's called Morning, the Purest Feeling, and it's about the book itself is about something which echoes my own journey. It's like a person who questions the life that he is in, and then he starts being honest with himself. It's two people, a male and a female, like two people. It's a love story of sorts as well. So it's like same thing with me. So for me, being an earthling was that the time I started living consciously and started paying attention to the world around me and allowing it to inspire me to create. And my dominant creative form was poetry, hence. So it's, I don't
Wow.
know, a
Okay.
storyteller. Yeah.
There's so much amazing stuff going on there, and I really kind of resonate with it. I know resonate is kind of a cheesy word, but I really I see life in the same way. So I'm always talking about being human or being real. And I think there's definitely an overlap between what you're saying about being an earthling and the whole real thing. And so for me, the word that you just used that kind of sums it up is consciousness. So the more conscious we are, the more awake we are, the more aware we are of, our surroundings and life itself, the less blocked we are. And the less blocked we are, the more that we can be creative and we can enjoy life and we can truly, make the most of it whilst we're here before we do drop dead. So as you've gone through this process of, I suppose, becoming aware of, the transitory nature of life and the fact that we're all on limited time and everything, what changes have you made that allowed you to get to this point?
Sure, it's a very interesting question. I think the first thing I did was stop listening to the external world and started
Wow.
listening to my intuition. Like,
Mm,
it's not like my intuition was always there, but I fought against it because it was against what everybody else was telling me, so called elders,
wow.
that this is what is right. But the
Yeah.
moment stopped listening to that and started listening to my, inner voice, I think that changed. That was the beginning.
Mm. So what do you think that the intuition normally has the right answers? Like, have you learned anything about that? And what was it that was causing you to fight that inner voice specifically, would you say? And how did you win that battle so that the intuition could come back?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think for me, like writing was the means. Like I am my
Mm,
most
mm,
honest self when I'm writing. So it's
mm,
like when I sit down to write, this is where I get real, and this is where my intuition speaks to me. Like I am more in connection with a higher power. I don't know. When I'm writing, it's like I'm asking myself questions. Yeah, because I did not listen to my intuition. There were a lot of question marks. Okay, a lot of questions, but I
mm,
realized these questions happened because the answers were ready to be unveiled. So when I asked myself
mm,
those questions, I wrote them down. Basically, writing was the way I found answers, and that's where I believe that this is, yeah, intuition is the real deal because it feels right
mm,
to me. And if I, going forward, the more I get real with me, like you talk about being real, unblocking your realness, right? So I
mm,
think that's why I resonate with what you say and what your content says, because it's exactly what I go through myself. It's a more real I get, and if I get unreal, I don't listen to my intuition. I get my payback, and I have, it's like karma. Like listen to it, okay, like you get this vibe, right? Okay, you get a vibe about stuff. Okay, this feels right, this doesn't feel right. And if you
mm.
go ahead with something which does not work, doesn't feel right, I mean, it just doesn't work out. Like, yeah. So yeah, I believe
Yeah,
in, yeah, hence.
yeah. It's 100% true. Like I've found this in my own life. So if you don't listen to that inner voice, that real voice inside you that you've tapped into with your intuition, then all that happens is you end up trying to force your life through all of the unreal things that you've been trying to filter life through. And anytime you are mainly motivated or inspired by that unreal stuff, well, you're just going to get unreal results. And so, actually, this process you're talking about of stepping back from all of that external unreal stuff that we take on board is the solution to, I would say, most of the problems in our lives. And most of those problems are just caused by, not being an earthling in the language that you're using.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess you are also like you echo what I am saying, but like just we're using different terms, right? I'm
Mm.
using earthling, and you're saying unblock the realness. But I think being an earthling is being real and being more conscious. Yeah,
Yeah. Like ultimately, exactly that. It's all the same thing. So the way I look at it, you know, I think the truth is the same for all of us. Like I think all human beings, we're experiencing the same truth from a slightly different point of view because of our own, bodies and emotions and all the things that we're going through. But the truth itself is the same. And if you can tap into that, however, that works for you, that's when life starts to open up and you can be more inspired and you can create more amazing things and do more things that are actually aligned with who you are. So this stuff that you're saying about, tapping into your intuition and not listening to the external stuff that's not real, how has that helped you to be more inspired? Because you seem to be a very inspired person.
thank you. I think what yeah. So answer your question. Like when I get more real with myself and listen to my intuition, I feel like and I'm going with my vibes here. Like I'm following what feels right to me, what doesn't. Very, very
Mm,
organically, there is this like, for example, the more I started being real with myself, the more I felt a connection with nature. I have always
mm,
been a nature lover, but it's more like now I can, look at nature from a perspective which is more conscious and aware. And when
mm,
I'm doing that, I tend to get inspired by nature. For example, like for instance, I tend to find poetry in my observations. Like if I'm
mm,
witnessing
mm,
even a bird or how the way she's colored or the way a flower is colored, or if I'm traveling, if I'm noticing the river, for example, or the mountains,
mm,
it's just the way I look at it. Like it's from like it's poetry to me, and that inspires me to create. And talking about inspired creation, I think what I was trying to say is that, like for example, as a writer, like I used to work in social media, like digital marketing and in content and branding and stuff. So
mm,
before that, like, I used to write for brands, like and every time I worked for a client, they had certain specifications. Keep your language less flowery. You know, the market demands you to write this. Like there was no creative freedom. And and even as a writer, even as a novelist, moment I have self-published my novels because if it's a publisher, they tend to change your style, and they're like, oh, this is working. People, they tend to tell you how to write a book. When I want to write a
mm,
book, because the joy of writing the book is what inspired me to write. It's not like I
mm,
suddenly wanted to make it commercial. I wanted to write a book because it inspired me. The story came to me. I can't change it because the market is asking me to keep it like that, or that
mm.
suspense thrillers are trending. If I don't like suspense thrillers, I mean, why do I write it? So that's what inspired creation for me is like writing and doing something that you making space for that kind of content, and not like succumbing to what is successful, what is trending. Like you make your own trends, or you define your own success. That's what I yeah.
Yeah. There's a theory, isn't there, or like an idea that if you're a creative person and you want to create something that really connects with others, then you need to do all this inner work and you need to figure out who you really are away from the ego and all that kind of thing, and to find a solid foundation to put yourself on. And then when you create from this real place, you're going to be aligned, and then you're going to be creating things that are actually true and resonate with other people in the world. Do you think it is that simple? Not that it's easy, but is it that simple? So you do the inner work, you find out who you really are, and then you express something based on that information instead of trying to just do what's popular and all this external stuff you just said.
Yeah, you asking if it's simple. It's not simple, obviously, but it's very uplifting. Like it's like flow, and I believe that nature's flow is what is truth. So when you're creating inspired from within content, like you said, you do the inner work and then you have certain realizations and share it with the world or whatever, or however way you share it, or whatever
Mm,
medium. I think that's like being in flow. And if I'm
mm,
not doing that, and if I'm not giving that, if I have a calling, for instance, I'm inspired to write something, like it's
mm,
very it's like this inspiration which comes to you, you can't stop. And that's like being in flow. If you don't
mm,
if you don't do that, then you might get another more, like these inspirations tend to be like always there. It's not like you have one inspiration, you ignore it, and then
mm,
again you find, so for me, I think what you said, I think doing that is like being in flow and being real in your terms. uh
mm,
it's not simple, but it feels right, like it's flow, like less
mm,
resistant, like what they
mm,
call the path of least resistance, right?
mm. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the main thing that causes resistance is almost always some kind of false idea or identity that we filter everything through. So I'm always saying the same thing on this podcast. It's the ego thing. So we have shame, guilt, and trauma. That makes us identify as something we're not. And then if we're identified as that and using that as the filter for everything that we try and achieve, then we don't actually produce anything real. But if you can step away from that, like you're saying, then you remove all of the blocks, because the only blocks are the ego stuff. And when there's no blocks, that's when you can get into this creative flow state where a lot of ideas are just popping up, and you either act on them or you don't, and you're inspired because you keep learning and you keep growing and you're expanding and blah, blah, blah. So to make it more practical, maybe, like, how can people live in a way, or how can earthlings or real people live in a way where they're putting themselves in that flow state as much as possible?
Okay. Yeah, like also it's something because I also follow like a lot of for me, I follow Abraham Hicks, who keeps on, inspiring me. Like and your content as well. Like for
Mm,
example, it's not like you can attain that complete state of flow because we're human beings. We're bound to feel
mm,
negative
mm,
emotion. We're bound to feel contrast. It's not like, you can completely get there. But if you can enhance that, like for example, if you
mm,
be in flow once, you will be inspired to enhance that, fine tune that flow how much ever you can. Because
mm,
when we
mm,
feel like negative emotion, it's like you will be, it's very organic, right? You feel negative, you organically asking for feeling better, and that feeling better is flow, right?
mm,
So
mm,
it's something which is a choice you make every day. Like either you
mm, mm,
choose to not be in flow or be in flow. It's a choice. It's a
mm,
moment to moment choice.
mm,
And it's not easy because we have so much resistance, right, in us, and we are our own greatest enemy because we are fighting ourselves with our own thoughts. Right? But the
mm,
for me, the state of flow that I could achieve was through writing again, because I write, and for when I'm writing, I feel like it's not like I start writing and I'm in flow, but I write to get to the state of flow. And
mm,
yeah, this is something for me, and I feel like if it's my 2 cents, I feel like if everybody has this dominant creative uh, form, whatever ways they want to express themselves, and
mm,
if
mm,
you, that is because that process gives you joy. So following your calling, whatever it is, following your passion, that is the way,
mm,
as much as you can, that is the way to being in flow as much as you can,
mm,
and
mm.
improve your life experience.
Yeah, 100%. And I
Yeah.
I totally agree as well. Like everybody has some kind of a creative outlet that is going to tune them back into the real version of themselves and put them back in that in touch with the the intuitive side that you mentioned earlier in the conversation. Where where do you think most of the resistance comes from? So you're right. Like we can be in the flow state a lot of the time, but like human beings are human beings, so thoughts are always going to pop up or things are going to happen, and so on and so forth. But what is the main thing that causes us to resist this natural state of flow? Because I think that state is the flow state is natural, but what keeps us away from that nature?
Our own thinking. I think
Mm-hmm.
we are, like in your words, we're unreal most of the times, and we have
Mm-hmm.
created a system thanks to society and conditioning that believes in an unreal. Because what is belief? It's a thought that we think, right? That's belief all the time. So our
Mm-hmm.
beliefs are when we're growing up with media, everything, social media, everything. It's like constantly, telling us being unreal is right, and
Mm-hmm.
then we have this dominant belief systems which is formed because of that, and uh, that's that where we are not listening to intuition. We are like listening to what is trending, what is cool, what is whatever everybody is following, trying to follow other people, and not following us, because we when we follow us, we are not part of the crowd. We are outcasts here. We Because
Mm-hmm.
being true to yourself makes you vulnerable. We are not ready to accept that. So for me, resistance comes from my own personal experiences, negative belief, and in a law of attraction universe, when you're thinking negative thoughts, we are attracting more negative experiences.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's just that. And that's why for me, writing enables me to stop that, and meditation, I also meditate in the morning, so it's like it
Mm.
stops that, and gives me the opportunity to refocus into what is feel good and what is right. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think the simplest definition of the law of attraction that I can give is that you just focus on what you do want instead of what you don't want. And if you can train yourself to do that, and I agree, meditation is like a super powerful way to do it. And also, yeah, for me, like writing helps me as well. But anyway, if you can train yourself to focus on what you do want and to think about those things, then obviously you're going to feel better. You're going to be unblocked and you're going to be moving and flowing in the way that you want to. You've said that a lot of the resistance just comes from the world kind of hypnotizing us or conditioning us to think that the unreal stuff is real and that we should care what other people think and we should chase things that we don't even really need, like material goods or whatever it is. What about at the level of our relationship with ourselves? So in the way that we relate to ourselves, is there anything that we're doing that is causing us to just focus on the stuff we don't want, and then to get more of that and to block ourselves and to not flow?
Yeah. So, but when you asked me the question, the thought I had was like when you said the best way to define law of attraction is to think what we want and focus on that. But it's not
Mm,
easy. If I mean, when it comes to me, sometimes I have certain wants. Okay, this is what I want, and the negative thought comes like, that sounds so super far fetched, or how will you get there, or where's the money, so I think for on a personal level, it's again like
wow.
unreal,
Yeah.
like I said, whatever belief system has been what like what I have told myself, like since for a long time, like based on what I see, what is like the world that we see,
Mm,
society we live in, we see like certain people being successful and having this idea that okay, this is how what success is, this is how you get
mm,
there, which is
mm,
not true, because everybody has a different story, like you said earlier, that we all come from different experiences, and
mm,
we cannot have one size fits all even when it comes to success. But that's what is we tell ourselves, okay, because we see, because what we see is what we believe, but in truth that's not truth. What we feel
mm,
is what we, like, feeling is truth. Like if
mm,
it feels right, it feels right, and if it doesn't feel right, it isn't. So instead of
mm,
following that, we don't follow that. We we tell ourselves this false story of this is this is how it should be. Like if you start something, these are the steps which are already defined. But why not
Mm,
create your own? You create your own steps, but we're not ready for that sometimes. So I think
yeah.
negative beliefs that we hold in ourselves, that is what gets in the way,
Mm.
I feel,
I
of
think you're,
flow.
yeah. You said something really
Yeah.
important that I've never really thought about, but it's the thing that gets in the way, or one of the things that gets in the way, is one, yeah, negative thinking. So maybe as soon as we decide we want to achieve a certain thing, so let's just keep it simple. Say we want to get a book published or something. As soon as we've decided that's what we want, the negative thoughts might start creeping in, saying, "Oh well, I'm not good enough to do this, or this is not going to happen to somebody like me, or blah blah blah." All these different scenarios where things can't work out. But then the other thing, which you've kind of alluded to, is we start thinking about every little step along the way that's going to get us where we want to be. And a lot of the time, all of that planning and all of that attachment to certain steps in order to achieve certain results is putting us in control of the whole process, which is actually impossible. Do you know what I mean? We can't control all of those steps. So I've learned in my life that a more real approach is okay, we know what we want, we know where we're trying to get to, we have a vision, we have a loose understanding of the milestones and the goals that we have to chase along the way there. But actually, we have no idea whatsoever how things are going to unfold. We know that they will unfold in the way we want them to if we keep going, but we don't really know all the little details. And so if we're too attached to that and we start thinking about those things and those steps and trying to control everything, that actually turns into a negative thing that just holds us back from getting where we want to be. Does that make sense? And so ultimately, it kind of comes down to faith or trust or something like that. Like, do you think that that is a big part of it? Like, we need to have faith in the process, and that faith, or you can substitute faith for any word that works for you, but that faith requires us to kind of transcend our ideas about ourselves.
Yeah, I think what you said is absolutely right. Faith, because like even with law of attraction, they are telling us you must believe in what you ask for. When
Mm,
believing itself is hard, right? It's not like we
mm,
wake up suddenly and we start believing in something that we don't believe. It's a process of believing.
mm,
I feel
mm,
like So for me, what I've started after a lot of realizations is that the art of allowing, like believing in ourselves, like
mm,
believing that
mm, mm,
if I want something, it is going to happen. And the way I do it is by looking back at the past manifestations, that yes, I will be taken care of. I mean, this, if I want something, I have to allow and follow, do one thing after the other, not try to get everything done all at once. Do what
mm,
needs to be done at this moment, and it will work out. Because like even with the Earthlings concept, I always wanted to build something like this, but where I came from a very different career. I never imagined I would be able to get there, but looking back, it has all happened on its own. And when I stopped focusing too much on what's happening and what's not happening, that's also, like
mm,
you said, it creates resistance. Like if it's like planting a seed and going and looking at how, when, why is the seed not blooming, it
mm.
just creates
Yeah,
a lot of, yeah, it's exactly what happened with me as well.
yeah.
So faith, I think it's like it's a very moment to moment conscious process of being aware. And
Mm,
yeah, like say you can't have belief suddenly. It's a process, I feel, for me.
mm.
uh yeah.
Like, could you elaborate on that process? Like, if you've, I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot saying that, but like that process for the average person from, I suppose, a state of non-belief in ourselves and in life to actually believing and going with it. What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, I used to be a complete non. I was the complete opposite of what I am now. I did not
Mm,
believe in or have faith, or I was very insecure. You know,
mm,
I had trust issues, right?
mm,
And then
mm,
trusting the process is like it's just unbelievable. You know, the past self, the past self, right? But the way I did it was taking one moment at a time, like setting smaller goals. Like, okay, I want
mm,
trust I want to get this done today, and trusting myself that I will be shown, like I will get be that this is where inspired action comes to me. It's like you get into a state, for me, by via writing, I get in a state of receiving where I'm like, okay, if I want to do something, uh and I don't know what to do now, that's how faith is cultivated. So then
mm,
I can
mm,
ask myself, what do I want to do now? And following that want, when I'm following that want, then I after following what I want to do now, very organically, I receive another, okay, maybe I want to do this now, and then doing
mm,
it like one step at a time. And when you look back, by the time the day is done, you will get your task accomplished, and has happened to me
yeah.
all the time. Not exaggerating,
Wow.
but setting smaller goals. Because if I have a big idea and I cannot get it done today, it's impossible. It's like planting a seed. It's a process. I think even nature, that's why I turn to nature for inspiration. It's like
Mm,
you have to understand, like, you cannot have everything all of a sudden. It has to be one step after the other. But if I can
mm,
do smaller goals and that's how can I can develop faith. But it's not like I will 100% faith, because there will be moments where I will completely question myself and everything,
mm,
and get
mm,
into the negative thinking. And but when that happens, the what I have realized is not to engage, because it's again, if I keep trying to make sense of negative thinking, I will not get the answer right then. But if I can sleep on
mm,
it, then the
mm,
next morning I have a better vibration, and I have more clarity when it comes to thought. So that's
mm.
how I the process is. Give. I think I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's amazing. So it reminds me of when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Um, this is a bit of a story, but like one night when I was a kid, like really young, I was like 4 or 5 years old, something like that. Like I wanted to watch some cartoons at nighttime, basically. So I went downstairs, and it was late at night. My dad was watching TV, and he said, "What are you doing? Get back to bed. Is really late. Blah blah blah." And I told him that I wanted to watch some cartoons, and he assumed that because it was so late, there were no cartoons on the TV, and so he started flicking through the TV channels. Actually, he said, "I'm going to flick through the channels. If there's a cartoon on, you can watch it. Otherwise, you're going back to bed." So he started flicking through the TV channels, assuming there'd be no cartoons and that he could send me back to bed. But as he was flicking through, there was this cartoon, and the cartoon, it was just a baby, like suspended in the air, walking across this kind of valley between these two mountains. And every time the baby took a step, like some bricks would appear underneath its feet, and it would start to make a bridge so it could walk across the valley. And it just kept walking, and eventually it got all the way across. And the relevance to what you're saying is, it's kind of like that baby on the bridge. I'm always thinking about this baby. I've never been able to find this cartoon again, because basically by having that sort of innocent mindset where you can trust yourself overall, even though sometimes the negative stuff might creep in, you've got enough faith to take the next step, and then the next step appears, and then the next step appears, and then the next step appears, and you can just keep going like that. And that's ultimately how real life works, I think. But you can only do that if you trust, or you've got the faith that we're talking about. um
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know what you think
Yeah.
about that, if anything.
No,
I'm rambling.
that's the perfect, that's a perfect image, like you can say, like, exactly like the baby walking in innocence, and the next step appears. That's exactly
Mm,
what I think. I do believe what life should be. That's being an earthling at the same time. Like, you are trusting the journey to take care of you, you know?
mm,
And
mm,
yeah, that's exactly what I also believe in. Like what I said, that you have to trust the process enough to understand that it's always going to be more. It's like I tell myself this, that if I'm mountain climbing and I want to reach the top of the mountain, and once I reach there, it's not like my desires will stop. I want to do more, right? Or maybe next mountain. It's always going to be a process. It's always going to be more, more, more. And it's not
Yeah.
like people say like, oh, I have become this, and if somebody says that, I've reached where I want to reach, and that's false, because after a point we will start asking for more. And similarly, if we can trust the process, that the journey becomes worthwhile. We fight less, and we reach our goals faster. I feel that's something I've learned the hard way. And yeah. And
So when we
yeah.
when we talk about trusting the process, maybe this is opening things up a bit too much. But what exactly is it that we are trusting? Like people are always talking about it, aren't they? Trust the process, trust the process. I agree with it 6 million%. Like that is how to live. We live by trusting the process of life, which is ultimately, I think, just about letting life carry us towards more wholeness or reality or whatever. But what
Yeah.
exactly are we doing or trusting when we trust that process?
We're trusting ourselves.
Mm,
I mean, we all have like this. That's the thing. That's the God in us, or the source, or higher self.
mm, mm,
Which is the inspiration which comes to us. Like, also, like for example, I don't know if you experienced this. I think you have, because it reflects in what you create. Is that sometimes you get an idea, okay, and then you follow that idea, and then you every step of the way you create, like you are guided, like, okay, maybe
mm.
this
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's the guidance, the what I call guidance, or the inspiration. That's what we're trusting. That
Mm,
is the what is I also call flow of nature.
mm,
That when
yeah,
you say trust the process, that's that inspiration, that's what trusting.
yeah.
I
That's
Yeah.
exactly it. So this flow of nature, I
Yeah.
have found, is applicable to all of us. So when we earlier on in this conversation, I said the truth is the same for everyone, and part of that is that the laws of nature are the same for all of us. And if we want to be real, then we need to basically get rid of all the mental bullshit that is stopping us from moving and living with those laws. And so, as we talk about trusting the process and getting better at trusting the process, all I think that really means is that we have become more aware of those laws. We have increased our understanding of the fact that those laws exist and that they play a role in our lives. So, one law that
Yeah.
you've mentioned is the law of attraction. I think that's a real thing. I think there's a lot of like bullshit out there because people want it to be something it isn't, but it's a real thing. So basically, if you think about what you want, you're going to move in that direction, like we said. Another one is just the law of cause and effect. And so if you want a certain thing, then, or if you want to achieve certain things, then that's a cause and you need to live as the effect that's going to get that because everything is a process, blah, blah, blah. So as you've talked about getting better at trusting this process, are there any of these kind of natural laws that you've become aware of apart from the law of attraction?
Yeah. The flow of nature, like even I think it's very intricately, everything is interlinked, like law of attraction. Like for
Yeah,
example,
yeah.
if I want something, like, which means that this is something which already has been manifested, and I when I follow that want, I am in flow of nature, and that's law of attraction, right?
Mm,
So
mm,
I don't know what other laws per se, like when you say, but this is what, like, I feel is the truth is
mm,
not, it's something which is uh, like, what we want is the truth. Like, truth feels good, that's what I have realized. Not
mm,
like,
mm,
if it's not something external, like truth is such subjective, is what I've realized. Like, if what I want means, it is what works for me, and this is
mm,
what is my truth, and if I follow that, that's flow of nature, and I am going to get to where I want to be. Like for example,
mm,
if suppose I want to be a billionaire, we all want to be, right? But I mean, we're not there yet, and I mean, I'm not there yet, and it's far fetched. But I'm not saying that I will not be. What it's not like, for example, I have to. Sometimes it's a process, and like if I keep following my wants right now, and I keep doing
Mm,
that, and maybe in the long run, I might reach there. So
mm, mm.
that's but if I want to be that, really not like following somebody said being a billionaire is cool, so you want to be a billionaire, but in truth, what do you believe in? Like, do I really want to be there? Do I want
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that comes with it, or do I just, what do I want? So it's
yeah.
just, yeah, that's true. The want meaning like you, something that really feels right to you, like
Mm,
your own thing,
yeah,
like
yeah.
I had to interrupt and say something here. Like for example, when I have this poetry earthlings is this another page I have where I talk about nature poetry and stuff. So
Mm,
there I often host prompts, okay, poetry prompts, and suppose
mm,
I ask people to write about the moon, for example. The same moon, everybody has such different perspectives, like same moon, but everybody is writing so differently. So this is something that I've realized is even with wants and success and everything, everybody has their own view of the same thing. But
yeah,
it may be the
yeah.
same thing, but we all have different stories. I know. I hope
Mm,
that makes sense.
yeah, it
It
makes perfect sense.
yeah,
Yeah. So everybody's looking at the same reality or the same moon or the same truth, but we all have our own interpretations based
yeah,
on, the filter that we're viewing life through. And I think, in the short version is that I think those interpretations and perceptions as well are just fragments of the whole truth. But we all have
yeah,
different fragments that we're kind of working with just because we're all individuals. And by pushing through our individual path to more wholeness instead of fragmentation, that's when we start to learn and grow and expand and all this kind of stuff that we're talking about. But just to backtrack a little bit, the question I was going to ask you is how do people know what they want, or how do they find real intentions within themselves? Because one thing I've noticed is a lot of the time people think they want something, but actually it's not them that wants it. It's their social conditioning that wants it, or it's their ego that wants it, or it's their shame and trauma and all these different things that are inspiring them to try and fill a void within inside themselves. And so when they start chasing that kind of stuff, it just causes more fragmentation instead of putting them on this path and this natural drive towards wholeness, which is the flow of nature and blah, 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 I think. So the
yeah. No,
question
you're
is,
right.
sorry, how do people know if they want something real?
I think the law of attraction answers that. Like, whatever we manifest, whatever our current reality is, it's completely based on our thoughts. So,
Mm,
if somebody wants something which is real, how do you identify that? Is like, for me, what works is writing it down. Like getting real with myself is like what I want, I write it down, and then I get to the point of feeling. It feels like this is what I really want. Like you have to feel the joy. I think what is true want feels like joy. It does not feel like any other thing but like pure positive energy is what I would use the
mm,
word.
mm,
That's how I
mm,
identify this is the real intention, and not
mm,
something just coming from ego or some other like sadness or trauma. Or because yeah, you're right, it's very hard to identify sometimes,
mm, mm,
what's the source of truth. So also
mm,
like that's why law of attraction plays such an important role, because law of attraction gives us exactly what we're asking for. Like if, for example, if I don't believe in the journey or something, I get more instances where, like for example, if I want something which is coming from trauma and it's not truth, the law of attraction will give me more of that, and then I'll keep asking for more, and till I get to the point where I have no choice but to be real with myself.
mm,
I think it
mm.
is the journey is already inspiring us in that way.
Yeah. Do you think
Yeah,
that always happens? I Some people, they keep there's the famous saying that's always getting thrown around. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And a lot of
Hmm.
people out there in the world are running around trying to create lives for themselves or build lives for themselves where they're just chasing things because of all the external, unreal things that we've already talked about. And eventually, they almost always do reach a point where they just say to themselves, wow, this isn't working. I need to change something. And that's when they start to wake up. Or do you think some people just spend their whole lives running around in these unreal hamster wheel circles and then just, die miserable and frustrated?
Yeah, I think a lot
Not
of
not a very
people.
happy question, sorry.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people do that. They
Mm,
don't listen to their intuition and
yeah.
live unreal lives and never satisfied. And I mean, yeah, but I feel like we always get an opportunity. Like you said earlier, that well-being or joy, whatever, is our organic state, natural state of
Mm,
flow, is
mm,
happiness
mm.
and joy, and we just do something to pinch it off, right? Yeah, yeah. I think if for me, I think ever since I was young, I always felt like there's more to life, and I started asking questions. And I feel like it's very different for everybody. I don't
Mm,
think that there is one answer to that. Like there may be different triggers for different people, but uh, sometimes a lot of people have this. How will I get to like I'm trying to understand how to answer this question. Um, can you again like what exactly did you
yeah, so I
ask?
suppose, yeah. So a different
Yeah,
way of asking that question is, if you keep getting the same results, so
yeah.
by which I mean you're getting results in life that you don't necessarily like, so you get the
Mm-hmm.
same negative results, then eventually you would think that for most people, there'd be a point where they realize that the problem is them and the way that they're thinking. But a lot of the time, because people are so distracted chasing all of these unreal things that they think they want, they don't actually realize that they are the ones causing the problems in the first place. And
Yeah,
so, do you think most of those people will just naturally, have some kind of a breaking point one day where they wake up and realize, wow, okay, I need to change something? Or is it possible to just spend our whole lives just, going around in those circles and then that's it?
I think it again depends on the person. A lot of people go through lives like that and die and never realize. I think they get another chance in next lifetime. I don't know, but I think
Mm,
some people do question and they wake up and get aware. And I think a lot of people who follow their creative passion or follow what gives them joy, I think they tend to wake up because for a moment there you're giving yourself the opportunity to choose what feels good to you and not
mm,
run around I think when we are insecure and that's where I feel again like everybody gets the opportunity every day to choose what is good
mm,
for them,
mm,
but every time I think there are two different responses to this. Some people you know take the opportunity and make their lives
mm,
worthwhile, and some people
mm,
fight it with resistance.
mm,
Yeah, I
mm.
guess that's the
Yeah,
answer.
yeah. I
Yeah,
think, like, to kind of go full circle, it always comes back to the wholeness versus fragmentation thing. And I
yeah,
think the fragmentation or ego, resistance, whatever you want to call it, that only comes about because we're scared to face the truth about ourselves and to push through some of the uncomfortable emotions that we might have picked up in life that made us more fragmented than we needed to be in the first place. And this natural drive that we all have towards wholeness is actually the thing that we can tap into at any moment that is going to bring more joy into our lives. Because actually, when I think about it, I think that feeling of joy is
yeah,
just a feeling of being connected to wholeness. And
yeah,
it just means that you've removed all of these like mental barriers and blah blah blah. You got into the flow state and you feel joyful purely because you're not holding on to that fragmentation. And so if you
Yeah.
can live like that, that's when you can be an earthling in the way that you're talking about,
Yeah.
or you can be real in the way
Yeah.
that I'm talking about, and then life just feels kind of amazing. So I don't know if that makes sense. Like I'm kind of rambling a tad.
It
I apologize,
completely
but
makes Yeah, it's
yeah,
like the being an earthling is the way to being real. If when you chose to be an earthling, you get to be real and get to live a life where you are woke and
yeah,
aware. Yeah,
yeah,
not woke
yeah,
in that social media way, but like really awoke, not
yeah.
trying to be
Purely because you're
pretend.
choosing your nature. You're choosing your nature,
Yeah, exactly.
and that's
Nature's flow.
basically it. Wow. Um, we've been talking a long time, kind of, but
Yeah.
we covered a lot, I think. Have you got any final words to just sum all this up? Like, if you're going to sum up this conversation and the main
Yeah.
points or the main lessons, like, what might that be?
I think I felt like an entire conversation was about being an earthling and how to be real. Like I felt like we were talking the same things, like
Mm,
but in
mm,
different languages. Like I used the earthling, top is the way of trying to make sense of what I believe in about the truth of
mm,
life, and you used
mm,
the concept of unblocking your realness and connecting to a wholeness, which is joy, and being aware, right? And
mm,
I feel like to add to it is like the only way, like I found, or the way which works for me is to connect to the wholeness, get real, and
mm,
be an earthling is to follow what gives you joy. That's and
mm,
how to identify that is whatever, like when we come to this earth we have so many options in front of us. We could do
mm,
whatever, and we very organically choose what we like and what we don't like, and that
mm,
becomes what becomes our passion. And what we
mm,
don't like, for example, if somebody wants to be a athlete or a player, or wants to go into sports, and they are being told that no, you go into finance, for example. you know like they want, it's like they have developed their likes and dislikes. It's completely different from what we do. So I wanted to give an example which is very different from us, because we are creative
mm,
people and sports and
mm,
finance are not creative. But what I'm trying to say here is that, like, we develop our likes and dislikes very organically, and if we can, we didn't make any effort, to identify them. So
mm,
that is the inspiration, that is the process we trust, that likes and
mm,
dislikes are completely organic. And if you can believe that, like if you can follow what gives us joy, passion, what we like, I
mm,
think that's
mm,
where we're the right path. That's where
mm,
already being an thing and being real. But the moment we don't do that, the moment we shut ourselves down and we say that no, this doesn't work, I think I should choose this way of life, or this career, or this person, to like, that's when we get unreal, and
mm,
we tend to live a life where we're not living anymore. Like for
mm,
example,
mm.
something I had this thought earlier today, like only a robot who doesn't have emotions will be like, okay, they will choose what's the best selling route to living an ideal life. But because when somebody tells you this is what's the where the most money is at, so you follow that. That
Yeah.
we can't live like that. We will at some point, we will hate it. We will have
Mm,
our desires. We'll want to do something else. So I think being an earthling, being real, is also understanding that emotions are very real, and I think emotions and feelings are our compass towards living the life that is true to us, or being true to ourselves, or why we are on this earth in the first place.
wow.
I hope that
So
makes
it's about
sense.
following. It's the Joseph Campbell thing. Have you heard that quote? It says, "Follow your bliss." It's kind of,
Yeah,
if you do that, you're going to be in touch with your nature, and then you can be an earthling, and then everything will be amazing. So,
not
boom.
really. You
Huh?
still have better. not all amazing. I mean, negative emotion, but we'll be alive and not a robot.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
I was just being a bit cheeky saying the amazing thing.
yeah.
Yeah. You get the whole human experience. Should we put it that way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess.
Avilasha, this has been really good. Where can people find you? Like on the internet or wherever?
Yeah, so if you're on Instagram, you can find me as Storyteller Earthling, Storyteller underscore Earthling, and my
Yep.
website is www.earthlings.co.in. So if you go there, everything is there, like all the social media
Right.
and the magazine, and I also have a podcast which I'm working on. So I hope you agree to be a guest someday. So and we
Yeah,
talk
I'll
about more.
see you on there. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So, okay.
that's it.
Well, I'll share all that, your information and stuff in the show notes. But Avilasha, thank you so much once again. It's been awesome.
Thank you, and I hope this conversation was of value.
It was. I definitely got something. So I hope you did too.
Yeah, I did.